All right, let's dive into one of the most debated and honestly most misunderstood passages in the entire Bible when it comes to relationships. We're going to unpack what the Apostle Paul actually says about sex and marriage in 1 Corinthians 7, and we'll be using an amazing lecture from Dr. Gary Meadors as our guide.
Wow. Okay. So right out of the gate, in the very first verse, Paul hits us with this bombshell. I mean, if you just read this line by itself, it seems to confirm that old stereotype, right? That Paul was this, grumpy old guy who is anti-sex, anti-marriage, and thought all that stuff just got in the way of being spiritual. It sounds pretty clear-cut.
So, yeah, this begs the question that people have been asking for centuries. Is this what the Bible is actually teaching? That it's somehow better or more holy to avoid sex altogether? Well, as you're about to see, context is literally everything. To really solve this puzzle, you have to remember that Paul wasn't just writing his thoughts down in a diary. He was writing a letter back to a specific group of people, the church in Corinth, and he was answering questions they'd already sent him. He's basically jumping into the middle of a conversation that's already happening.
And this is where things get really interesting. The academic consensus, which Dr. Meadors is a part of, is that Paul isn't stating his own opinion here at all. Nope. He's actually quoting a popular slogan that was going around Corinth, probably from a group that believed denying your body all pleasure was the key to spirituality. So Paul puts their catchphrase right up front so he can spend the rest of the chapter completely dismantling it.
And he does not waste a single second. Right after quoting their little slogan, he launches into this incredibly powerful rebuttal. He doesn't just disagree with them, he lays out what is honestly one of the most pro-marriage and pro-sex arguments you'll find anywhere in the ancient world.
Now, to get a sense of just how serious Paul is about this, Dr. Meadors points to a concept from philosophy. Paul treats sex inside of a marriage as a deontological principle. Now, I know that sounds complicated, but all it means is that for Paul, this isn't just a good suggestion or a nice idea. It's a fundamental, binding, moral duty. It's an obligation. So here's how he builds his argument. First, he says people should get married to avoid sexual temptation. Simple enough. Second, and this was absolutely revolutionary for his time, he establishes that sexual intimacy is a mutual duty. He says a wife has authority over her husband's body and a husband has authority over his wife's. That's a radical statement of equality. And third, he says you can't deprive each other, period. The only exception is if you both agree to abstain for a short time for spiritual reasons, and even then, it has to be based on mutual consent.
Okay, I know what you're thinking. But wait a minute, doesn't Paul say he wishes everyone could be single just like him? It feels like a total contradiction, right? Well, this is where Paul introduces a really important nuance. He immediately clarifies that being single like him is a rare exception to the rule, not some kind of superior way to live. He calls it a special gift. And the specific Greek word he uses here, charisma, is key. This isn't a gift like a birthday present you receive. A charisma is a special, God-given spiritual ability for serving the church. It's not something you can just choose or work hard to achieve. It's more like an innate talent that God gives to a very, very small number of people.
And framing celibacy as a charisma has massive implications. It means it's not just a pious lifestyle someone picks. It's a highly unusual thing, given for a specific purpose. And here's the kicker. It implies that the person with this gift is actually free from being driven by strong sexual desire in the first place.
So let's bring this all home. Paul is drawing an incredibly clear line in the sand here. He's establishing what is the norm, the expectation for almost everyone, and contrasting it with what is a very rare and special gift for just a few people. This table really sums it all up perfectly. On one side, you have marriage. That's the norm, the standard expectation for all, based on how people were created. It's the right way to respond to natural human desire. On the other side, you have celibacy. That's the exception, a special gift, a charisma, that actually frees a person from that strong desire so they can serve in a different way. It's not a higher calling, just a different one. And Dr. Meadors just boils down Paul's super practical advice into this one blunt, memorable line. Paul is essentially saying that if you're burning with passion, that's not some spiritual test you need to overcome. It's a giant, flashing sign that you do not have the gift of celibacy, and you are called to get married. It's really that simple. So there you have it. A verse that on the surface seems totally anti-sex is actually the opening line of a powerful defense for sex within marriage. It all hinged on understanding the original context. And that just leaves us with a much bigger question, doesn't it? How many other things do we think we know that we might have completely wrong, all because we've lost track of the original conversation?